Welcome to the Last in Line podcast, where we discuss faith, hope, and truth in the lives of amazing servant leaders. You are in the right place if you crave purpose and if you hunger for a life of significance. This podcast applies biblical truth to our daily lives, and we pray that you walk away encouraged and inspired. This is the Last in Line podcast.
You don't ever really realize the magnitude of what words you speak in a teaching scenario, for instance, either in written form or verbal form, like I do on this podcast, even if I'm at all teaching, but just for the sake of, for example, I have to be careful of the words I say and what I choose to encourage you with, because I will be forced to put my money where my mouth is eventually. And tests are all over the place in life. You guys know that already. And we were put in the hot seat under the magnifying glass this last weekend on our trip out of the country to a volleyball event. And coming back, we experienced quite the unexpected turn of events and adversity when it comes to our return flight home. Now, let me just first say, guys, if you're listening, please share this. The ones that are faithful every week, thank you. I feel like virtually and through the digital platform, we are sharpening each other. We are living, breathing Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpening iron. And I thank you for doing that. I thank you for your encouragement. I thank you for sharing this to encourage others. And I thank you for your feedback and your input if you have any. And haven't really received a ton of that lately, but feel free. The door is always open if you have suggestions or constructive criticism. I'm all ears. But thanks for sharing this in advance. But I'm going to go to a place today that I'll say I feel like I got probably an A- grade if I'm grading myself. And I don't know what my family would give me. Hopefully they'd be in that ballpark. But we fly out of the country last Thursday to Puerto Rico. And I hope I said that right for all you people of culture. Uh, we were looking forward to this, right? Big tournament, big volleyball tournament, playing teams from other countries, just to kind of gauge our level of competitiveness and where we stood with other high levels of competition. And had a good tournament, had a good turnout. A lot of teams right in the middle of city center. If you've ever been to San Juan, very cool little like event area by the convention center. And I'm using gestures with my hands like you can see me. Like if you're not watching this on video, then that's irrelevant. But it's a nice little cool area. It's right on the water there. I mean, we went to the beach and let the kids snorkel a little bit. I say kids, my wife probably had more fun than anybody. I sat this one out because I'm not big in swimming in the ocean, but for whatever reason, I just don't like being in wet clothes. It's weird, but that's me. So yeah, I sat there and watched the stuff, but we got to experience some beach life there in San Juan, and it was just a great time. So we got third place out of 32 teams. Okay, not bad. My daughter plays libero, and if you know anything about volleyball, it's a pretty important position. She's quite the leader on the court, got a significant court IQ, and as of all my kids in their sports, and she's very skilled. We did well. So we're coming back Monday was the plan. And we get there and we're waiting around. It's delayed. It's delayed. They get us on the plane. They get us out there, and we sit for probably an hour and a half on the tarmac in a scorching cab of an airplane. And they pull us back in, cancel the flight, reschedule same flight next morning, 8 a.m. So of course we have to go back to the hotel. Hopefully they have a room, which they did. after we stand in line for like 2 hours waiting to get vouchers and hear about what we're supposed to do, get our luggage back, stay the night. We get a text 11 p.m. saying that 8:30 flight is delayed till 5 p.m. So, of course, they're trying to fix the same airplane. Okay. Of course, they're trying to fix it. Um, some pressure in the engine, which not something to mess around with, clearly. So we're like, oh, great. I can just picture a little guy in there with duct tape and a blowtorch and maybe a bottle of your finest malt liquor. And he's back there just flipping coins is what I'm visualizing. No, but I think they spent some time on it. They didn't have another plane. They just had to go all in with this particular part. Well, it turns out they were waiting on a part and a mechanic to fly in to do the deed. And it took like 9 hours. We ultimately got on the plane at 7 p.m. Got back home to our house by 1:30 Central a.m. So that's a quick synopsis, but there's a lot in between that went on, right? There's a lot of mental anguish, physical uh tax paid in being at the airport for 5 hours ish, and you're in another country. You don't know who's working on the plane. You've got a 5 hour flight home. Who knows what's going to happen? So I mean, I could have gone a number of ways with this. And what I'm trying to say about my initial statement about how I have to put my money where my mouth is I was put in a situation, my family put in a situation, my wife and daughter and I, the rest of the family were back home here. But and it's my wife's birthday to top it all off yesterday. And recording this on Wednesday, you'll hear it on Thursday. This was 2 days ago if you're listening to this real time. Tuesday, the 19th. My wife has a birthday and we spend the whole day at the airport. That's just another side note of all of the drama. But we had two choices. As a family, we could have, of course, taken the easy road, which is operating our flesh and our feelings and what circumstances were dealing us. Could have gone that direction. That would have been a lot easier. Or we could have leaned in, pressed in, kind of dug our feet in the sand and operated in the grace and the character and the spirit that we preach about all the time. It's what we're teaching our kids. And that's what I'm hoping to live by. But you don't really know if you're going to live by it unless you're put to it, right? Unless you're put to the fire and you're tested. And we were. And thankfully there was no life or death. I guess it could have been had the people in charge would have just rolled the dice and pushed the issue and not spent the time and done the due diligence of getting stuff operating properly. But ultimately, we took the long process to get everything taken care of, and we got home safe, and I'm grateful. Right? I would definitely rather sit for a day extra than die over the Caribbean. So we were pushed Monday evening, Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening into the wee hours of Wednesday morning. We're pushed emotionally, spiritually, physically. I mean, it takes a toll when you're sitting in an airport. Like you're just sitting. Yes, you can walk around a little bit, but the food that you're faced with having the opportunity, the choices that you have are limited and they're garbage. And so you're feeling the effects of that. You're feeling the effects of the atrophy of just sitting and it just was a whole thing. I say that to say I've got four ways. In fact, they spell the word calm, ironically enough, or not. C.A.L.M is an acronym that I've got for you that I believe I got from one of our pastors at our church a couple years ago when he was talking about dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, dealing with emotional distress of any kind. So, ironically, calm is what it spells. And I've got four of those, the C.A.L.M for you. This is what helped me. And I didn't realize it. Like I wasn't cognitively going to this outline, but I just pulled it up on my phone because I'll be honest, I forgot, lost track that it was Wednesday and I need to record an episode, right? In order to stay consistent with you, giving you one a week of a solo on Thursday. Yeah, you may not necessarily depend on it, but guess what? I do, because I want to be consistent and reliable and honor my commitments. So I saw this outline and I'm thinking, wow, we kind of did all these things and it allowed for us to maintain a steady state of emotional condition. And you're probably thinking, how can I do better at that? Because there's something in your life, or there has been, you can look around and see that it's in other people's lives, of searching and hungering for a steady state of emotional peace, a steady state of the emotional condition. And it allows you to stay firmly planted, firmly footed. It allows you to stay unwavered from just who you are and your core. And circumstances can try, but if we stay in these, they won't move us. Yeah, they affect us. Yeah, we have to acknowledge them. Yes, we sometimes lose self control and have a negative outlook on the situation. Yeah, we comment when maybe we don't need to comment, speak death over a particular situation. But ultimately, we come back to ground zero and right in the baseline that is our sweet spot of emotional state, the steady state, I call it. So the anchor of strength is what I'm going to call this today. The C.A.L.M. calm. First one is celebrate. And like I said, I can't necessarily claim these and this acronym as mine, but these are not new concepts, but I like the way it's laid out. And I'm glad I took notes um, on this particular thing. And it was a couple years ago, like I said, and I still have it. So it must have meant something to me. And God knew I was going to need it for right now. So thank you, Lord. So celebrate. That's the first thing. So when we get in these situations, it's easy to look to focus on what we don't have, what's happening to us instead of for us, what we take for granted instead of as granted, all those things that equate to not having the gratitude that we should have, focusing on the half empty cup that we're faced with, the circumstances that are coming against us, and why me, poor me, and we can sink in that pit. And it's easy to do. I've done it and I'll probably do it again. But in this situation, we had a perfect opportunity at the airport, going back late Monday night, thinking, why is this happening to us? Will we ever get out of here? There are no other flights that we knew of at the time. And we felt stuck and trapped and at the mercy of someone else's decisions. And 5 hours plane ride, right? 2,000 miles from home. So, yeah, I could see where a person would get negative. And we might have for a split second, but then me, as a leader, and I'm not saying I did anything spectacular, but I viewed it as my responsibility to speak encouragement, speak some sort of hope over the situation. My wife and daughter were surprisingly positive as well, even though it was uh, frustrating and discouraging, and especially knowing her birthday was today. It was disheartening. I'd be lying if I said we weren't affected by it, but it's ultimately what you speak and how you act, what your behaviors and your words, if they align with what you're speaking spiritually over your life and hoping for and believing God for. Celebrating is the first step. That's the C. We praise, we thank God. And so in those moments alone, whether I'm going to the bathroom, whether I'm at the gym, at the hotel, whether I'm just sitting in my thoughts, right? I made a conscious effort to thank God for the family I have, for the trip we were able to take, for getting us home safe, thanking Him for something I hadn't seen yet and quite frankly looked hopeless. But I thanked Him before it happened, before we ever had confirmation that we were going to get on that flight. So that's the first one, is celebrate. Second one is ask. So don't think I wasn't asking, right? I needed a miracle. We needed a miracle. I'm asking God, show up, reveal yourself in a big way. Get, be involved in the decision making with the mechanics and the skill that they possess and the part getting here on time. Like they had to fly it in from somewhere else. And let me be honest, Puerto Rico's not across the street from anything. It's across a ocean. And so we're relying on that flight to go smooth and the part to be right and the mechanic to be proficient. So I'm asking God, please do what you do. Like, what we have planned, what the future holds more than we do. So I'm just like, God, please let this work. Please let your favor be in our life. You promise abundance, you promise prosperity, you promise peace. Please reveal that. And he did, of course. But we don't have that wisdom. We don't have that peace. We don't get the grace if we're not asking for it. So that's the second one in C.A.L.M, calm. Keep yourself calm by doing these steps. So first we celebrate, then we ask. God tells us to ask him and he will give it, right? Ask, seek, knock, those kinds of things. And so you have to be conscientious to pursue him, because in those moments where you can't put your hand to the plow and you can't put your feet on the pavement and take those steps to affect the outcome, you've got to rely and completely trust and land on your faith. That's number 2 is ask. Number 3 is L for lean on Jesus, of course, but not on my own understanding. So when we're going through that situation, you're sitting in a hotel room and your brain's going 100 miles an hour. You're thinking of, how can I provide a solution? My wife is a fixer too. We're both she's on her computer. Yes. I mean, we got to take steps. Can't just sit on our hands and hope God, and he can, but hope he does, not just sit back and hope there's a lightning bolt that allows us to get on an airplane and get home. We're looking for other flights. We're calling the airline. We're seeing what options we have. We're finding out, how are they going to compensate us for this extra hotel, this extra, you know, cab ride, this extra meal? Like, we got all these inconveniences. How are they going to make that right? And they did. But we couldn't lean on just us. We would go crazy, especially in the hotel room, that you have 24 hours and the walls are closing in on you and you're hoping that you get on this flight that's been delayed 8 hours. So lean on Jesus, not on your own understanding, right? Trust in the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul, and spirit. Lean on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him. He'll direct your path. So lean on him, acknowledge him. He'll direct you. He did us. Lean on the promises. Like I said a minute ago, there's plenty of them. In fact, I've heard it said there's about 6,000 promises in the Bible. Find one. It's not going to be hard. So we had to put our faith to work. Faith without works is dead. So we had to activate that. We had to prove it. We had to show it. God can work with that. Our heart had to be leaning on him. Our heart had to be yielded to that, submitted to that, surrendered to him, what he promises, what he's done in the past, what he'll do again. So we were like, okay, I really can't do much now. I've done everything I can do. Still frustrating. Still in those moments of dark where you just want to lash out. And then you want to like take it out on the people you're closest to, which we never did that. I was really thankful and impressed and grateful that we didn't do that. We stayed in the moment. We leaned on each other. We leaned on God. We prayed. I'm sure they prayed in their moments of privacy. And then we're trying to balance people at home, taking care of a house. We're 2,000 miles away and we're supposed to be home 24 hours before we were, and 30 hours as it turns out. And so there's a lot of plans that had to be adjusted because things got turned upside down. So we had to lean on Jesus. And that sounds pretty common sense, pretty straightforward. But that's the L. C.A.L.M is lean. L is lean on Jesus. And the M is meditate. That kind of ties all these together. You got to figure out time to get away from the madness, get away from the chaos, let the dust settle emotionally, spiritually, let the dust settle around your circumstances. Those are going to be what they're going to be. Especially in this situation, those things were going to happen. There were things happening behind the scenes that we couldn't see, we couldn't control. We didn't get to know all the information. That's the hardest part. So what do? You got to hunker down, you got to dig in, and you got to meditate. C.A.L.M, calm. The M is meditate. Dwell on good thoughts, of course. And look, that's hard. That's easier said than done. And I'm the first person to probably think in a negative light when stuff like that happens. I want to get angry. I want to get negative. I want to get cynical. I want to feel like I want to get blaming of others and other people. That's usually where I used to go first. And this particular situation, I didn't do that. And maybe I'm growing. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting better, and that's the goal. But I don't know that until I'm in these situations. And maybe God knew that too. He's like, okay, you've done all these episodes, and you're talking about being strong spiritually and learn how to be a man and stand up and lead and stay calm, but be tough at the same time. And let's see what you got, boy. Well, I hope I passed. Like, I feel like I did okay. I've done better. I did better than I've done in the past. But dwell on good thoughts, soak up God's goodness, man. Just start remembering. That goes in with the first one that we did, the celebrate, like praise and thank. Let's meditate. We're remembering all the good he's done. We're remembering who he is. And we're also remembering, look, this place that we're in right now is temporary. It's a small piece. It's a fraction. It is a speck on the map from eternity. Like, whatever happens, happens. I know where I'm going. I know we're good. Even if, God forbid, the plane goes down and we're done, like, we can rest in that. We know where we're going. We know he's won in the end. So we're a part of his family. We're his kids. When the fire is the hottest, it's hard to focus on that. You gotta be intentional. I had to make myself in those moments. I had to make myself like, dude, look to him, eyes up, focus on the good, focus on what he's done, focus on how capable God is. Like, there's nothing he can't accomplish. So whatever happens is going to happen. That was after we pursued other avenues and tried to, do our part and tried to make something work differently. But ultimately, you have to just sit and meditate, sit in him. His spirit is there when you invite him. Like, it's in you all the time if you're saved, but the Holy Spirit is there as a helper when you ask, and he comes in with wisdom, he comes in with peace, he comes in with guidance, with revelation, with confirmation, and he he can be the glue. He is the glue in those situations, in our emotions, in our spirit, with the people around us. But we got to be intentional about pursuing him and meditating on purpose, not just hoping that when we're walking down the hall of a hotel of your fourth or fifth night there with no end in sight, no information, no updates, no guarantees. When you're walking that hall to go down and get a cup of coffee, you aren't necessarily thinking about meditating in the goodness of God when the heat is the hottest, unless you make yourself, unless you focus on the right thing, unless you make a point of being intentional and looking to him. But you got to meditate in it. Got to read the word. You got to pray. You got to get in it. Got to believe it. It's got to be part of you in those situations, especially. So ultimately, we get home at 1:30 and we are whipped. Like I said, I'm recording this on a Wednesday. We got home this morning at 1:30, and so got maybe 6 hours of sleep at best, I guess. And yeah, still worked out today, still lifted some weights, surprisingly energetic. And I'm just waiting to crater, waiting for the shoe to drop of my exhaustion. But I wanted to come in and record this, and I really and truly didn't realize it was even Wednesday, that I had to drop this Thursday morning. And I'm telling you, God knows when somebody needs to hear something. And maybe he knew I needed to hear this particular outline that I put in my notes 2 years ago. Maybe he knew that it was meant for a time such as this, and maybe you're going through something. Maybe something's coming, okay? And I'm not doom and gloom guy, but I'm just telling you, maybe something's coming that's going to test you like it tested me. Maybe the heat is going to get hot on you. And I pray that no harm comes near your tent, no plague befall you. Out of Psalms, uh, I think that's out of Psalms, maybe Isaiah, one of the two. But I pray that nothing catastrophic happens. But I mean, I can't say that you won't have a test coming, and maybe this will help you in that. So I appreciate you guys, appreciate your faithfulness, your consistency. Hope you appreciate mine. With that, be blessed.